that standing order. But I'm very happy to follow it up if that's helpful to the House. Yeah. Sumaroni.
The sight of a government thrashing around without a plan. Isn't it horrendous to see just time after time, every day now, there's a new thing that shows that this government really has no direction and doesn't know what it's doing. There we had Tim Grosser counting the cost of his big fat tax cut that he could give back, but no, he wants to flog off the state's assets instead to pay for infrastructure. And those are some of the priorities that government's got over there. And then we've got the prospect of seeing on a daily basis now the carnage at ACC from Judith Collins as she thrashes about in her portfolio without a plan and without an idea, and all the casualties that are coming out of the ACC board as a result of that. But it all started some weeks back when the government decided that its best idea, the only real idea that it had for quality education, was to increase the number of children in every single class throughout the land. And it was every single class throughout the land, Mr Speaker. The biggest impact was going to be felt in the intermediate and middle schools up and down the country. But actually, the truth is, every primary school and every secondary school were going to feel the impact as well of increasing class sizes. And, Mr Speaker, what I cannot understand is, with all the official advice, all of the levers of government, everything that those members opposite get to have in terms of information to make sound decisions, why they could not see what every parent in every household up and down the country saw was plainly obvious. The fact that if you have more children in a class, then that is going to be a more difficult prospect for the teacher, and therefore the quality of every single child in that class, the quality of their education would diminish. And it's what we might call, and it's not a technical term, Mr Speaker, but it's what we might call a no-brainer. And yet that lot opposite, the government, didn't understand that very basic concept. They had to wait until it was parents and teachers who rebelled against such a ridiculous prospect that somehow increasing the number of children in each class and having more children per teacher was somehow going to increase the quality of education. It absolutely is a no-brainer. But watching Hekia Parata thrash around and actually try to defend that policy, and knowing, as now the New Zealand public does know, that every single one of those members opposite, including the Prime Minister, actually still believe that increasing class sizes is the way to go in education. That is still their strongly held view of what was needed. The only reason they haven't gone down that path is because their polls were collapsing, because parents knew better than this government, and parents do know better than this government, because it's just about using common sense. With all the official advice that they've got, everything that they've got at their fingertips, they still couldn't work out what a daft idea that was. And it's now clearly obvious to every voter in New Zealand who is the party that stands up for quality education. Because it's the Labour Party, Mr Speaker, it's the Labour Party that understands, as parents do, what are the key things that make sure that children get a quality education. And it's absolutely clear now that Labour has education as a priority and National does not. And they cannot put that genie back in the bottle. It doesn't matter how they spin this around, how many U-turns they make on this issue, the genie cannot be put back in the bottle. That now every parent understands that at its heart, at its core, the National Party doesn't get education. It not only doesn't get education, but it doesn't value the role of education in lifting families up, the way that parents actually value education. The national government is completely out of touch with the sort of value that parents place on education, and that's what they got a shock about, Mr Speaker. They didn't understand the value that parents put on education. They didn't understand the backlash that was about to happen, because education doesn't figure as a priority in the minds of the national government, and that's plainly obvious. The genie cannot be put in that bottle. But witness the blame shifting. Now witness the blame shifting, because it's not only Judith Collins doing the blame shifting in the ACC portfolio, but also Hikia Parata, who said that it was all her officials' fault that she didn't get that policy right. And then John Key said it wasn't his fault, it was all Hikia Parata's fault. So between the blame shifting and the thrashing around, there's clearly no plan.
The Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr Speaker, at the weekend, a very significant